My heart is heavy as I begin today's podcast, and I'm going to be honest with all of you who are listening to this. The content you're about to hear is heavy and heartbreaking. But this story needs to be heard all around the world, and it needs to be shared over and over and over again. And I really feel passionately about this today because we are going to dig into the harsh reality of domestic violence. And honestly, when I say these words, they infuriate me because I cannot believe in this day and age that this is still an issue. Like, have we not progressed enough as a society to understand that domestic abuse is wrong on every possible level? Honestly. Today, we're going to shine a giant spotlight on this issue from an incredibly brave and courageous mother who has lived every painful aspect of this journey. She and her husband, along with their 3 grandchildren, suffered unimaginable loss. Together, they lived through a nightmare, and they navigated challenges that most of us cannot wrap our heads around. But through the pain, there is hope, so much hope, and a way that you can help too, with a project called Jessie's House that is going to change so many lives. I want to plant this seed early so you're aware of it. We're going to talk about it, and I will get those details to you later on in this conversation. For now, though, I'm so humbled that Lynne Rosychuk has stepped into the inner circle today with me. And Lynne, thank you so much for being here and for trusting me with your story.
Thank you for allowing me to share Jessie's story and our story, because it's an important story to share.
Is. It really is. And I know that you are closing in on a dream realized, and I want, like I said, people to hear this at the beginning of this podcast. You are preparing to open Jessie's House. Tell me what it is.
Jessie's House is an amazing project that a bunch of caring individuals set out to realize a dream that my daughter and I had to build a safe house for families fleeing domestic violence. We started 8 years ago, and our dream was to build a 2,500 square foot home. And from the amount of support that we've gotten from our communities, we are now 1 week from moving into a 9,000 square foot safe house that's going to help all genders, all races, and it's going to be an amazing place.
It's been a remarkable and unbelievable journey. And one thing, when I was looking at your website, that website is what for people searching for you right now? They need to hear it. Where can they find Jessie's House?
At the Jessica Martel Memorial Foundation.
Okay. On the front of it, it says, "Until all homes are safe, you have Jessie's House."
Yeah.
I mean, that hits you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
You've been there. You understand the why behind this powerful statement. So let's go back and let's dig into your beautiful daughter, Jessie. Tell us about her.
Oh, Jess. She was an amazing young woman. She was loved in her community. She worked at a little diner there that everybody in our town went to, and people.
Small town, right?
Small town.
Everybody knew everybody.
Small town, Morinville, yeah. Her customers would often remember her singing songs to them, telling jokes, playing little pranks, or young moms who were living the same kind of nightmare that she would often show up at her place of work, and Jessica would be there with the tip money that she'd made for the day, knowing that she needed that money as well, but knowing this poor young thing needed it way more than she did, so she would give it to her. She loved people. She was an amazing writer. It was one of my best friends, and I miss her.
You two were so close. All the years. Was she your only child?
No, I have another beautiful daughter that is just as equally close to me, and this has impacted her tremendously too, because they were close as well, and now she doesn't have a sister to lean on or ask questions, because Jess had kids at the time, and my other daughter, Jackie, she was just getting in a relationship, just starting to think about babies, and she died, and then my daughter got pregnant. Jackie got pregnant, and her baby was born. She knew that her baby had a severe heart defect, and
she needed her sister.
She needed her sister.
Her sister wasn't there.
So
let's go into the journey of that Jess wasn't there. Tell me about when she got into a relationship that put her on just a devastating path.
Yeah, she met James when she was about 18 years old, and I don't know what it was about him that appealed to her, but she always had a soft spot for the brokenhearted, I guess, or the broken, and he certainly was that. And she just thought that through time, with all the love that she would give him, that he would be able to heal and be better. Unfortunately, that never happened.
How was he broken?
It's a hard story to get into, and it's probably something I probably can't share because it would cause some problems.
Okay.
But cycle of abuse, right?
Okay. So he was dealing with a lot of his own personal issues.
Yeah. He had just been contacted by his biological dad for the first time in over 20 years. He had never met him, and then there was a meeting that was supposed to happen, and then it never happened. So that disappointment, and so there was
That's a lot to deal with.
A lot of stuff going on in his life too. Anyway, but there was something about him, you just get a sense sometimes from people that things are just not right. And I started noticing signs that, he was verbally abusive to her. He would call her names, make fun of her, make her feel like she wasn't worth anything. He started to control who she could see and who she couldn't. He started controlling her, trying to track her everywhere she went, and I started to question her about that. And
when you did, how did she respond?
She said, "Oh, Mom, it's going to be okay. I'm working on it. James, I know he's like that, but he's just going through a rough time." And like, she would always try and protect him. Yeah. So, I was thankful that we lived in the same community so I could keep an eye on her and stuff. And they ended up moving away into the city, and it was a basement suite that should have been condemned. It broke my heart to go there. He wasn't working. She was the only one that was working, and like, this place was disgusting. The people upstairs who lived upstairs, they would drain their sink from their dirty dishes, and it would drain right into her sink and stuff like that. And it just, it's not what you want your daughter to live
How did you
through.
process that as a mom? Like, how do you want to just go? It's so hard because you want to go into that situation and just take her from it.
And I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I spent lots of days going into the city, just checking on her, making sure she had enough food, checking she had power, whatever she needed. And then one night we got a call from it, because it turned out it was my uncle that was renting the upstairs. We got a call from him saying that James had slapped Jessica, and my uncle went down to see what was going on, and there was an altercation between the two of them, and James ended up in jail for the night. And I went over there, and Jess came home at that point. And
with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But abusers have a really, really good way of talking themselves out of bad situations. there's this honeymoon period where they promise everything and then they behave for a certain amount of time, and so she forgave him that first time for slapping her, and he convinced her to move to Hinton,
Which is quite a ways away from where you were.
right. It broke my heart, because then I thought, what am I going to do? But I had family that lived in Hinton, so I was a little reassured that at least my family could help keep an eye on her for me. And things didn't go well there, and she ended up coming home. She was home maybe a few weeks, and she found out she was pregnant. I tried everything I could to tell her, Jess, you can do this on your own. Because I had been a single mom on my own when I was not much older than she was.
Right. And she was how old at the time?
19.
Okay.
And anyway, again, the tears from him and begging, and I'll change, I'll do what you want me to do, I'll move you back to, or I'll move to Morinville, we can stay in Morinville and all that. So she took him back.
That must have been so hard for you to watch this.
Mm-hmm.
How was he toward you?
For some reason, he actually was good with me. He respected me. I was straightforward with him, and I would confront him when he wasn't nice to Jessica. But I also wasn't hard on him either. I tried to help him out and offer whatever kind of services I could for him. For a while, he had a drug addiction, or an alcohol problem, so I offered to help him through that. Like, we were just trying to be really supportive of him so that he wouldn't be so hard on Jessica. And I was that only person for him in his whole in his life at that point. So it gave me a bit of an opportunity to keep an eye on things, and but then another baby comes, and then it gets harder to leave. And then a third baby comes, and the situation is so bad at this point. I remember getting a call from her. She was scared out of her mind because he had taken one of their children and had threatened to harm himself and one of the kids, and took off with him. And she had called the RCMP, but at that point they couldn't really do anything because he has rights to his kid.
He's dad.
He can take off with his kid. How do they know? Right? So she phoned me, and she's crying and freaking out. I run over there, and I'm with her, and I was going to go drive around, but then I noticed that he was driving back and forth at the house.
In front of the house.
In front of the house.
You saw him. What was he doing?
Watching what she was doing, I guess, just seeing what she was going to do. And he saw that I was there, so he called her, and he said, "You better get your mom the F out of here, or I'm not coming home, and you'll regret that." And she just kept begging me, and we tried calling the RCMP again, and they couldn't do anything. And she kept begging me, "Mom, you gotta go, I need him to come home, I need my son to be home." So everything in my body, "Don't go, Lynn," but I couldn't. She was begging me, and I didn't know what to do, and I wanted my grandson to be safe.
Of course.
So I went, but I did the same thing. I drove back and forth in front of her house, and then she finally just phoned me, and she said, "Mom, go home, everything's okay." And at that point, because we had been trying to access services to get her into a safe place, every shelter, there aren't any shelters in
Your small town.
in our small town, and the ones in Edmonton were always full. So her response was always, "Sorry, we don't have room. It could take 2 months for you to get in here." And when they have the courage and the means to leave, they need to leave now. They can't wait 2 months. 2 months is going to be too late for some of these women. And anyway.
So there you were, making phone calls, and she was in agreeance of that, and there was no room at shelters.
No.
And no one came to help you?
No.
And you asked for help, didn't you?
We asked for help.
And what were you told?
We just kept hitting roadblock after roadblock, and we're sorry, Jessica. We're like, go stay with your mom, get out of the house. They actually even told her to go home and kick him out and demand that he pay $1,800 a month in child support. And I actually overheard that conversation. I was so upset when I heard that, because I said, are you guys out of your minds? Like, really? Do you know what's going to happen to her if she goes home and tells him to get out?
It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's absolute bullshit that she got that answer from an agency that's supposed to help. What is wrong with the system?
Yeah, it's broken for sure. And I know that they're trying, maybe. I don't know if they're trying. It's just they're so overwhelmed because of the amount of people that are trying to access these services. It's just crazy. Last year alone, the stats that ACWS published were over 20.
That's the Alberta, give us the acronym.
Alberta
Council of
Women's Shelters,
okay,
yes.
what were the numbers?
Over 23,000 women, children, and seniors turned away from shelters in Alberta last year.
Because there's no room?
Because there's no room.
That's a big problem.
That's a big problem. And that's only what's reported. We know that usually only 50% of domestic violence is reported, because most often women aren't believed, or there just isn't anywhere for them to go, so they don't phone, because if they leave, then what's going to happen to them? Are they going to end up homeless? Because a lot of them do end up homeless because they have nowhere to go. But the choice is, do I stay and let my children and myself be abused constantly. And terrorized, really, because it's a form of terrorism, really.
It is.
That's
and
how
it's
I
just
feel
a
about
power. It's a control over them constantly.
Yeah. So
terrorism is a good word to use with that.
Yeah. I actually even saw a tag from the United Nations declaring domestic violence and family violence a worldwide epidemic right now.
God.
So, and then, you know, another stat that I had read too was that every day 2.5 women are killed due to domestic violence.
Oh God, something's got to change there.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to change.
And it's not just women; children are being murdered as well.
Yes.
When spouses get upset at their wives, it's usually their first form of control that they have over them, because the mom's going to do anything they can, or dad, whichever one are being abused, because it happens for men as well. Yeah. It's their way to control the situation.
Mm-hmm. Take us back to where you are. There's Jessie. You're trying to get her to leave. There's no room. The situation is getting worse and worse at home.
So that the next day when James went to work, Jess and I sat together and we did as much research as we could around safety planning and stuff, and developed a safety plan and put it in motion. We had a date set. It was supposed to be April 29th, 2009. Nobody but Jessica and myself knew. That's what the safety plan said.
That was the day she was going to leave?
April 29th, yeah. And so that day comes, and both of us went to work as we had originally planned to do, and at about 5 o'clock in the evening, I heard her voice in my head so loud. And it unnerved me, because I thought it was like she was in the house with me, and I left the show house that I was at, didn't lock the doors, and just drove over to her place. I only was a few minutes away from there. But as I was driving, I was thinking of the safety plan, and it said, don't change the course of anything, just follow the plan. So I went back to work, but my uneasiness just kept growing and growing and growing, and I kept trying to call my husband to go over to check on her. He wasn't answering, and I was like, what is going on? And so I left work again, and I went home to see if my husband was home, and as I got into the door, I heard the phone ringing, and it was my husband. And he was telling me, you need to come over to Jess's house right away. I said, why? Like, what's going on? He says, Lynn, I can't tell you, just come over here. And I drove over there, and I think I already knew at that point. But I get to her house, and all I see is like this chaos everywhere. There's police cars, ambulances, people everywhere, and I can't find anybody that I know. And I'm like trying to get into the house, and people are holding me back. And my husband comes out and wraps his arms around me, and he's like, I'm so sorry, Lynn. I'm so sorry. And I just fell to the ground. I'm sorry. I felt so horrible at that point because I had been so close to getting her out. I felt like I had failed her, like I should have been there. Maybe if I would have went when that voice in my head said go, but I know now that that wouldn't have been the case because she was already gone at that point. Then I started worrying about her children. Like, where are the kids? Where are the kids? I can't see the kids. And thank God he hadn't done anything physical to them. But my husband had put them in the car while they were waiting for me to come. And as soon as I got to the car, I'm wrapping them in my arms, and they're crying, Dad, he killed Mommy. Is he going to kill me too? And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, the baby's, she was 9 months old, had blood all over her jammies. The middle one, he had tried to intervene, and he had gotten kind of tossed against the wall, so he had a big goose egg on his head. And the oldest was in shock because and hating himself because he didn't stop his daddy from killing his mommy. You know, it's like, it was the worst night of our lives.
I can't even wrap my head around it. I'm sitting here across the table from you, and I just want to wrap my arms around you, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for you and for your family.
Thank you.
It
never gets easier telling a story.
It's 11 years, isn't it?
And I've shared this story, oh my goodness, probably 5,000 times. I can't even tell you how many times.
But as I'm listening to you, it's like you're reliving every moment.
Well, right now, it's been a roller coaster of emotions, especially the closer we get to opening Jessie's house. And the last 8 years, this journey has been actually a miracle for Jessie's kids and my family, because it's helped us focus on the good stuff that Jessie was, not on the horrible things that have happened to her.
Can you take us through what life was like after she died for those kids and for you?
Well, those kids,
they were all, what were their ages?
9 months, 3 and 6. And it's been a really tough journey for them. For the first 18 months, they slept in our bed because they couldn't sleep by themselves. And there would be nights that I would get woken up to hands around my neck because my grandsons would be reliving the trauma or getting beat. Their behaviors became like I didn't even recognize the kids for a while because they weren't the loving fun kids that me and Jessica used to take out almost every day to go to the park or do an activity with or whatever, they became angry and fearful and all kinds of really negative things, and they turned all that on to me and my husband. I was abused by the kids for probably a good 3-4 years. They broke my nose, they broke my arm, they broke my leg, other things, and it's not like I could never be angry at them for what was going on, because on top of the broken system that we have with women trying to get help for domestic violence, mental health is right there along with it. Like the trying to navigate through that system and advocate for the services that were so rightfully deserved to them. Like they didn't put themselves in that position, and nobody knew how to deal with 3 very young traumatized kids, so there was so many mistakes made. And
tell me about that, following Jessica's death and you taking them under your wing. Did you adopt them?
Yeah, we did actually adopt all 3 of them.
So how did you help them? First, you're grieving, and as you mentioned, my heart just hurts. It aches for you. Like you said, the guilt, which is not yours to bear, but that you felt. So you're grieving the death of your daughter, and then there's 3 children that have lost their mother. How did you seek help? What did you do? What did that look like?
Well, for my husband and I, we didn't get help. We were so consumed with just trying to reach out and get the right kind of psychological help for the kids. We were taking them to play therapy, like they were going to therapy 3-4 times a week, and at first, but nobody knew what to do with them. So it was almost like a waste of time for us. And soon the kids learned that really nothing was going to ever come of these sessions, so they stopped trying to even ask for help anymore, because each time they would get a little closer to one therapist, that therapist would say, oh, this is way beyond my scope of things, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to find somebody else. Or the psychiatrist that was in charge of them, his opinion was that my husband and I could not manage these children, and that we should just abandon them back to children's services and walk away. And my husband and I were so fucking mad, because we're getting this constantly,
and rightfully so.
Yeah,
that's what he said to you.
Yeah,
or she said to you.
It was, yes. And in Alberta, you can't just fire your psychiatrist, because I'm not really sure the reason why, but so we were trying to get him off the care of our grandchildren, and he wouldn't. And I actually had to threaten him with media coverage. I was going to have some friends that I knew from one of the news stations come to the hospital one day, because my grandson had tried to commit suicide. And they were...
At what age?
He was 9 at that time.
Oh, what happened there?
We took him to the emergency. An ambulance took him to the emergency, and he had tried to tie a rope around his neck.
And you found him at home?
Yeah.
9 years old.
Yeah, and he had a bag over his head, too.
He was okay?
Physically, but not mentally at all.
Lynne, through this journey, did the kids talk to you? Did they share their feelings and what was going on inside their head and their heart?
Yeah,
what
they
did
were
they say?
just angry. They hated him. They hated everybody. They were even starting to learn not to trust us, because because of their behaviors and stuff like that, children's services would end up getting involved, and then a tough choice had to be made were the safety of their sister and everybody in the house. So they would take the boys out of our house and place them in group care, thinking that was the best possible answer for them, which was absolutely the worst possible thing for them. It taught them to not trust people, and especially my husband and I, which we had been trying so hard to model a different kind of life for them. My husband and I have a really amazing relationship, and we wanted them to be able to see
the love between you
and our extended family, because we're very close. But them being taken in and out of our home and placed in group care did not help that situation at all. So anyway, this psychiatrist kept saying that we just needed to abandon the kids back to children's services, that would be their best hope for getting the proper services. And I don't understand that. Like, why would they have to be abandoned to be looked after?
And why doesn't he really do his job properly and help them?
Right. Because he didn't know why. He didn't know how.
Why wouldn't he let go? You said you almost had to get media involved to get him removed from the case.
Because he was convinced that he was right about his diagnosis with the boys. He had said to me that the oldest had no empathy, and therefore he would probably end up being a sociopath. And I was like, are you out of your mind? Seriously. He's 9.
Right. And lived through the most traumatic experience that life could offer.
Yeah. And he just tried to commit suicide, and here you're telling him to his face that there's nothing you can do for him.
How did you navigate that situation, and where did life take you from there?
It took us home, because that was the only option we had, and we kept just trying to. At that point, when we threatened the media, he did remove himself from our care and referred us to a different psychiatrist, and we had to wait, I believe it was like 8 months for a response from that psychiatrist, only to be told that I'm not sure why he referred you to me, because I don't treat kids. So then we had to go through a whole nother long process, because it takes anywhere from a year to 18 months to get in to see a psychiatrist for the first time.
And in the interim, you're trying to manage behaviors that probably you didn't understand.
And they're also prescribing them heavy-duty medications that, all these antidepressants and antipsychotics and stuff like that really have never been tested on children, but they're giving them to them anyway, and it's causing horrible side effects for these kids, but nobody's really monitoring this at all, other than my family doctor. Thank God I had him in my life, because, he helped me navigate some of those systems and stuff like that. But
how did you keep it between the lines at this point?
Well, for a while I wasn't. I was just barely managing, and I think I mentioned this to you before. There came a point when I felt like I was even failing just as kids, and I didn't want to live anymore. And it was just by the grace of God, I walked into a church in our community one day, and this is going to sound weird, but it was like a surreal kind of moment. I didn't see people, I saw light, and this glow, and this sense of peace, and people enveloping me and just loving on me, and it's been a journey since then. God's taken me on a walk that my whole family really, that's what saved my oldest grandson too.
Tell me about how things started to change. What happened?
Well, for my oldest grandson, he actually started that journey before I did. There was an amazing pastor in our community that I had never met, neither had my grandson, and he showed up at my house one day. He wanted to mentor my grandsons, and he just started hanging out with them and doing some cool things with them and just loving on them. And he started taking Gabe to youth group. And Gabe started liking it, and he started opening up more, and because he was really close. He didn't really talk to anybody, and he would hold his anger in, and then it would just blow, massive blow. And anyway, so he started hanging out with this pastor, and this pastor took him to a youth convention. There was like 300 or 400 kids there, and in that moment, Gabe, for the first time, and it had been about 3 or 4 years, stood in the middle of this circle and shared his story with these 400 kids. And all these kids just started to cry, and they just all gathered around Gabe and just loved on him. And when he came home that night, I saw a difference in him right away, and I was like, oh, that must have been a good outing he had with the pastor. And he goes, Mom, you're never going to believe it. And he came in my room, and he just was hugging me. This was the best day of my life for a long time, he said. I've never been able to get that out, and it just from there, it's still difficult, but there's this seed in him now that's just wanting him to be better than the past, right?
I can't imagine how that must felt for you and your husband to see these kids brought back to life.
Yeah.
Did it impact you as well? Did their healing help you heal?
Well, it was because of that I said to myself, well, I can't believe the impact that this is having, and I was at a pretty low time in my life at that point too, and this is having such a positive impact on Gabe. I want to go and see what's going on over there. So see anyway, so this one Sunday I walked into this, it's not even a church really, they don't have their church built yet, but it's in this community center, and I walked in there, and it was just the turning point in my life too. It was
why was it a turning point? What impact? How did it affect you? What was it about it?
Well, it just opened my eyes so that there's just not just pain out there, that there is hope and healing and faith and community. And community is key. You can't do things without it. You can't raise kids without a community. You can't build things without a community. You have to work as a whole. You have to love people. You have to just want to be able to do better, to provide better for, it just can't be that the horror all the time. We see so much of it that we need to see some light. It can't be just all bad. And that's what I needed my grandchildren to see, because their life had been all.
Can I just hold space for what you just said? I am so taken aback by it. I'm so moved by it. And I'm sure everybody listening is, because, I try to put myself through what you've been through. And, there's a lot of, to get past that anger and to that despair is so monumental in your journey. And to be able to say those words, that community is everything, and there is hope, and there is light past that terror is, oh God, we have so much to learn from you. We really do.
I've learned from so many amazing people that have come along on this journey with us. Without those people in my life, it would have been a lot different, I'm pretty sure.
That was a turning point for you?
It's not that I've always been a giving person and wanting to help out, and I used to help women that had fled violent situations and stuff, because I know what it's like. I've
Yes.
lived that life. But, and I'm just very lucky that I met a man that has supported me through some pretty tough years, because even when we first got married, I was still living the past of my abusive relationship and carried it on to him, but he stuck by me and he helped me get through all that. And it's just so much easier to do things with people. It's just, I've just been so fortunate to have had so many amazing people come into my life since this has happened. So it's just my way of being able to give back.
Tell me about what some of those people did for you. We don't have to name names, but some of the gifts that they gave you in your journey.
The very first one that we ever got was actually the kids. The first Christmas they were with us, an organization in Edmonton contacted us and had heard about what had happened to our family, and they wanted to sponsor the kids for Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my living room was packed full. There wasn't a spot in my living room that did not have a gift. They left them gift cards. They
Beautiful.
bought them clothes. Like, I was crying so bad as they were all walking through my door. And all these people with big parcels, and they phoned and said the kids could ask for anything they wanted, even if it cost $20,000. And of course, we didn't do that because
But just that generosity.
yeah. So that was the very first encounter we had with people's extreme generosity. But even just throughout the whole journey, people showing up at my door and bringing meals just when they knew that I was just so tired and couldn't cook, or coming in and watching the kids for a few hours just so I could even go have a nap or do some laundry or whatever it was. And then once I started talking about Jessie's house and stuff like that, our community, like, they've been amazing. Pretty much every business in Morinville has done a fundraiser for us at some point. The town actually gifted us a piece of land, so that started our journey to where we started getting a lot more serious donors and grants and stuff like that. So
I love watching your face as you start to talk about this, because you light up at this point. And I wanted, thank you for telling us about some of those gifts, because when someone goes through extreme grief or loss, so many people aren't there for them because they don't know what to do and they don't know what to say. And that's why I wanted to shine a light on it, that the simplest of gestures go such a long way.
Yeah, that's
and even
so
saying
true.
something like, I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you. Because most of us don't know what to say. So thank you for sharing that beautiful part of your healing journey. And speaking of healing journey, let's dig into Jess's house, because that was actually your and your daughter's idea together.
yeah.
Take us back where that idea came to fruition.
Not long after Jess died, I was invited to share her story with an organization in St. Albert that deals with domestic violence called the Safe Society. And when I was doing that presentation, I had mentioned in it that Jess and I had a dream of building a house one day for families to be able to come and begin a new journey of love and healing and hope. And the executive director of the organization came up to me and she says, I can't believe you just said that, because I've really wanted to build a safe house here in our community for such a long time, and I just can't get it off the ground. She says, but if you want to do it, I'll support you 100%. And I was like, well, we'll have to, I'd love to, but I have no idea how to do any of that stuff. I don't have any education in starting up a nonprofit organization or anything like that. So anyway, so she just kept encouraging me, and after that a few more organizations had asked me to share with them, so I did, and it was, even though it was really hard to share the story over and over again, it was also kind of freeing a little bit. Like, it just didn't, you just have to get it out sometimes.
So by talking about it was healing, was
yeah,
it?
yeah,
I
for me
wondered
it
about
was.
that.
I didn't know if it would be at first, and especially for the kids, if they started hearing that I was going to be out talking about it constantly, how it would affect them. And for the longest time, we kept a lot of that isolated from them.
Okay.
It wasn't until, because they did know that I was doing something, it wasn't until they started asking more questions and started showing interest that we started
Including them?
including them. That was before we actually even started the designing of the house or anything like that. So
Wow.
they've had a big part in pretty much the whole
And
project.
happy to be
Yeah.
involved?
Yeah.
What have they said to you about it?
Well, right now, because we're moving stuff in and cleaning and stuff like that, they've been bugging me almost every day. Can we go to the house? Can we go to the house? Can we help you do this? Can we help you do that? So, yeah, they're really, really excited about it. It's,
You're coming up on your on your opening, which is in April,
yeah.
but government funding was yanked from you.
Well, I wouldn't.
Or was it not?
It's not that it was yanked from us. It's just it was yanked from everybody.
Okay.
Government funding came to a halt once the new election came. There was a freeze on certain sectors. Lots of areas have been affected.
And you were one of those.
And
that
we
were
were one of
affected.
those.
So what are you doing now? How can we help you, for anyone who's listening today, because you have a shortfall that
Yeah.
you need to fill in order to make sure that this house is opening and functioning? So is there a GoFundMe page? Is there a website? Tell me more.
We do have our website. You can make donations on the Jessica Martel Memorial Foundation.com website.
Jessica Martel
Memorial
Memorial Foundation.
Foundation.
Martel is Martel?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 T, 1 L. You can make donations there. Where else?
I believe if you could use jmmf.ca, it will get you to our website as well
Okay.
too, because that is quite a long.
Okay, is it considered not-for-profit?
It is a non-profit,
Nonprofit.
sorry,
Yep.
non-profit
Okay,
charitable organization that's registered.
so for people who are going to donate, where will their money go?
It will go directly to operational costs of the house. We've been successfully able to raise every penny for the build of the house all on our own through fundraising efforts, generous gifts from donors and stuff like that. But the government's never funded a shelter build, and we're actually the first shelter to be built in Alberta in over 22 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The need is massive, but it's
Yeah.
not just putting a roof over these women's heads or men's heads that are struggling. You're going next level with your services. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
So Jessie's house is not just a bed. It is a place where we are going to be offering a trauma-informed care service, and it's a multi-level disciplinary team that's going to be working with with all members of the family. It's not just the parent. It will be any of the family units that are that come with. Like, some might come with a parent, because that's been a barrier.
Yes.
If they can't if they have an ailing parent living with them,
Right.
how are they going to accommodate that? So we have the rooms that we've built in our shelter are large enough to accommodate those kind of things. Our rooms are also large enough to accommodate women that have large amounts of kids. We also have a private suite dedicated for seniors or male victims. So it's going to be pretty cool.
How does this make you feel to know that this opening is coming up?
It's been a pretty emotional journey, especially the closer we get. It's not very uncommon to find me crying in different parts of the house.
No
Or
doubt.
I've been taking government officials through tours of the house and stuff like that, trying to advocate for more funds and stuff. And they even leave the house pretty much in
Right.
tears and stuff. You know, it does affect them. It's not that we're trying. It's not like they're not wanting to give us money. It's just, where is it going to come from when they don't have it, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I recognize that. I wanted to shine a light on this because you deserve all of these accolades. You just received a national award. Well, it was last year. Tell me about that award and what it meant to you.
Yeah, that was a ride and a half. I've never been comfortable doing public speaking at all.
You're doing great.
This has certainly taken me out of my comfort zone, but someone nominated me for a L'Oreal Paris Woman of Worth award last year, and I was one of the 10 that was chosen to be represented. And
Wait, is this a national or international?
No, it's national.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
Canadian. And it's just Canadian.
Not just. It's a national award. This is big. I wanted to make sure I gave it the right framing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so anyway, each of those 10 women were awarded $10,000 to the charity of their choice. Wow. And then we were showcased in a really beautiful video they did, and it went national, and from that a national vote went out, and I ended up winning the national title and an additional $10,000 for our organization from that.
And so well
I
deserved.
felt really humbled by that experience. I had the ugly cry on stage, so that wasn't...
Which would be completely understandable under the circumstances.
Yeah, but it was such an amazing experience. Like, they pampered us and like total makeover and jewelry, and flew us to Toronto, and we stayed at the King Edward's Hotel for the weekend, and my husband got to come with me and be part of that because he's been a huge supporter of me in it.
So
it wouldn't be
for that.
Yeah, so it was a great experience.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so then just in September, L'Oreal Paris started a new campaign, how they wanted to change the way people perceive the red carpet, that it shouldn't be just celebrities that walk the red carpet.
Agreed.
Right, so they invited me back to Toronto.
I love it.
And I got to go walk the red carpet.
Yes.
They got me a gown, and we got to go to a premiere. It was during the International Film Festival event there.
Oh, this makes me so happy.
It was fun. Every time I'd go outside the hotel, there'd be some star standing out in the street signing autographs or something, and yeah.
You deserved both of those experiences
Well,
a million times.
Thank you.
Over.
Those, like I said, those things are kind of, it's not why I got into doing what I'm doing.
Of course not. No, but listen, it's nice to see that recognition. So we're loving on you right now,
Thank
and
you.
I am pouring it on because you deserve it.
Thank you.
You began by saying you miss her every day. I miss my mom every day. I mean, she passed naturally, and I think about her constantly, and I can't imagine what it's like.
Yeah, that was another hard thing for me too, because when my mom had just passed away a couple years before Jess suddenly from lung cancer at a very young age, at 63. And when Jess died, it was so hard not to have her there with me, because, well, first off, I kept thinking if my mom would have been alive, there's no freaking way this would have ever happened, because she would have kicked the shit out of that dude, really. She's a short little thing and feisty, but anyway.
Do you feel that she's at your side?
All the time. You know, when we first started doing this project, the only thing that we were ever going to do was just raise money to build this house. But as soon as we told people that we were starting the organization, we were getting calls almost right away. Is the house ready? Is the house ready? And we didn't, of course, the house wasn't ready. We knew it was going to take years for that to happen. So what do we do for these families now? So we started this outreach program, and we didn't have the money to hire anybody. So I stepped up and I said, well, I'll help do whatever I can.
Oh my gosh, Lynne.
So anyway, the very, very next day, I get a call from this woman, and she says to me, she says, I was going to end my life last night, and I have 3 beautiful kids, but I just can't, I couldn't live my life anymore. I lived in fear, and I wasn't protecting my kids, and I just couldn't live like this. And she went to bed, and when she came up to her room, she saw a presence in her room that immediately put her at peace. And this presence talked to her a little bit and put the name of Jessica Martel in her head. And so the woman got up and did some research and saw our webpage and read Jess's story and saw the picture of Jessica. And it ended up being Jessica talking to her that night. And she reached out to me. And the whole time I helped this family, this was one of the worst stories I'd ever encountered. The stuff that was happening to this woman and her children. And I needed to get her out of there and get her safe. And I didn't have a house to take her to, but I'd found a place out in Westlock. It's not there anymore, but it was such a beautiful, it was the dream that I had of a house out in the country where you would just feel this serenity and hope. And I found this house for her and her kids to go to, and we took her out there, and she stayed out there for 2.5 months. She was the only lady that ended up staying at that house with her 3 kids, but it didn't matter. For some reason, that worked out that way, that house was open at that time for her and her kids. And in the meantime, we were trying to secure some subsidized housing because she was getting ready to get evicted from her place because she couldn't afford to stay there. Her husband had found out where she lived, so the RCMP didn't want her staying there. Her power had been turned off, so her fridge, all the food was rotting in her fridge and stuff like that. Her furniture was stuff from the dump and that. Anyway, while she was gone, we managed to secure her subsidized housing. And my ex-husband, his parents had just passed away and left him a house full of brand new furniture, and he gave it to me just at that moment. And so we went to her house while she was still doing her stuff, to her new place, set up all her furniture, and brought her home. And it was like the kids in particular, they're touching everything, and they're like, Mom, look, we have a bed, because they didn't even have a bed. We had set up a little stereo for the older girl, and she's just like crying so bad in her room. I've never had a room like this, she says. And they could sit at the table and have dinner together, or sit on the couch and cuddle together. It was just, I'll never forget that experience. That was about 6 years ago, and I've been in contact with this family since, and they are doing so well. They're out in their own community advocating for families that are struggling just like theirs. So that's why we do what we do. That's why we do. And she's with me every single day. I know that.
Helping you along the way. Probably.
Every time I get worried about, oh my gosh, where are we going to get the money for this, or where are we going to get the money for that? Angels show up. And twice the same angel gifted us a huge amount of money that's been able to let us build this 9,000 square foot home.
Incredible.
So.
Incredible. I don't really, I'm just going to ask, the dad, James, where is he? He went to jail, right?
Yeah, he was convicted of second-degree murder, which in Alberta carries a life sentence of 20 years with eligibility for parole. He got in 10. So his 10 years came up this past summer, and he's now at a halfway house for the next 6 months, and then they reevaluate it again.
Any contact with the kids?
No, and he's not allowed to, and at this time the kids don't want any contact with him. And
How old are the kids now, and how are they doing?
17, 14, and just about 12. They still have a journey. Mental health issues are going to be a constant norm for them, but there's light in their eyes again. There's laughter. We're being able to act like a family and do things as a family. So things are good.
You hesitate, but you do hold space that way. They are good. Have you healed?
Well, yes, the journey that I started with our church and our community has taken me through a spiritual awakening, or I don't know how to say it. It's been an amazing walk with God. He's taken me on some pretty incredible rides. I've been able to go on some mission trips to some of the poorest countries in the world and be able to help women that are struggling through domestic violence. And he just keeps providing the things that we need. And, I'm praying for this additional shortfall that we have, $400,000. We weren't anticipating that, but construction costs and stuff ended up being a lot more than we anticipated.
So $400,000 is what you need to fill. So anyone listening, no matter where you are in the world, and I know I have listeners as far away as Australia and Italy and London, if you can help, Google the Jessica Martel Memorial Foundation. Find a way to fill your bucket by giving away, because the impact that you can have on lives everywhere is enormous. I want to end with this. You've gone through one hell of a journey, one you never signed up for, and you have so much love in your heart and so much light in your eyes now. What message do you want to leave our listeners with today about what you've gone through? What do they need to know and understand about your journey and about the bigger picture here?
I think it's really important for everybody to get educated about domestic violence, learn the signs, learn how you can best help people that are living in those situations, because it's not just as simple as telling somebody to leave, because there's so much more than that. There's safety, there's housing, there's finances, there's all kinds of things. So education is key. Advocating for those that need you to advocate for. Horrible things happen to a lot of people, but there is hope and light from that if we work together.
I have so much respect and love for you and
Thank you.
everything that you have shared with us today. The level of vulnerability and courage that you demonstrated is unmatched. Like I said, listening to your journey is one thing, having to live it. I hold space for every feeling that you have gone through, and the way that you shared today, the way you educated us on the issue, and the way that you honored your beautiful daughter's memory. I have no doubt that she has pulled up a chair at my podcast table right now.
I'm sure she has.
And is listening to every word. I extend our love to the children, and I hope they continue on their healing journey. Thank you for the change that you are bringing to this issue, for the voice that you're giving the issue, even though you never wanted to be that voice, but you've embraced it, and for the love and light that you demonstrate in the face of unimaginable circumstances. You are a massive inspiration to all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for stepping into the inner circle with me today, and nothing but positive love in your journey ahead with Jessica's house. Let's
Thank
get
you
this
so
thing
much.
done and built and put out there to the world.
Amen.